Hello everyone, this is RVer Frank having some more RV fun. And what do you notice there sort of glaring at you? What was pointed out to me by one of my viewers was this, I don't know what the hell this is, but I was very concerned about airflow here with the radiator, of course, for cooling. But one thing I haven't really assessed here was the airflow to the engine. So with the quad van, I had addressed the air cleaner intake because of the location of that. I put a little scoop to get a little more airflow. And I hadn't looked at this yet, but as I said, it was pointed out to me that this probably should have come off after the manufacturing process there at the factory at some point, because this is a very fine mesh. And the air cleaner, after all, is for keeping, things out of the engine. And anything large, certainly that air cleaner is going to keep any large items. But if you look at the orientation of that intake, at speed, any bugs or what have you is not going to make a right angle into that intake, no matter how much of a draw. And so this really has no function that I see, that I want to keep it on there as suggested. So that's coming off of there. Gone. So now what I might do is look at what can I put there, if anything, as a right angle to get flow in there at speed. So I'll take some dimensions, see what I can simply put on there, and maybe do a little test. A little airflow is not going to hurt, and again, it's high enough underneath this hood to where I'm not going to worry about actually bugs coming through here, because the screen is really the limit in terms of open grill for things to come in. So this area here would be behind the hood. So I'm going to take a look at that and see what improvements I can make, and beware of that little yellow dust cover, probably there for the manufacturing process. Okay, returned from my trip to Lowe's, and I got some of this AC ducting, and this may work. The hose clamp over that's going to fit in there just like that. That hose clamp in there, there's no restriction. Okay, and then this high performance scoop will go in here like so. Hard with one hand, and it'll capture just below the hood line. So it's sort of a ram induction vent, 4-inch. I'm going to go ahead and try it. I'll hook it up. Okay, so to prepare this to slip on here, I put some cutouts to enable that to crimp down with the hose clamp. So I did 4 of them, and as you can see, when that hose clamp tightens up, it'll nestle into each of the cutouts there. So we'll go ahead and get this on. If you can see, the air intake nozzle has a taper. In order to get that elbow to seat properly, I'm going to go ahead and put some duct tape around here to build that up and to provide a soft interface there that ducting can clamp down onto. Okay, so what I did was I built up this with duct tape close to the diameter of this point here, so that clamp will be placed right in here over that elbow end and screwed down. Okay, with the elbow installed and the worm drive hose clamp placed in there, it's solid. Now this whole frame here is a metal fabricated, very solid frame. We have a very robust air cleaner design, and of course this intake is not a weak point here, so it's tight. So we'll go ahead and put the I don't know what vent you'd call this. It's definitely intake reducer, I guess I would call it. So that will fit right into those crimped. So that will be easy. I'll just put the hose clamp on there. Perhaps there is some adjustment here. When the whole thing is settled, I'll probably run some duct tape. Anyway, so we'll get this put on. Okay, to ensure I get a good bite on this hose clamp, or for this hose clamp, I'm going to go ahead and put some duct tape around this and then clamp down on that duct tape. Again, this metal to metal could slip, and I want to make sure that there's not going to be any movement of that in or out. So I'm going to go ahead and put some tape around that and then clamp it in. Okay, so I've got it clamped in there pretty tight. Now this ducting here does have some ability to adjust, so at some point I'll want to make sure that there's no movement in that in the final installation. So I'll go ahead and put the ram induction air reducer on, and again I've applied that duct tape to that interface, which will provide a little more grip. But to make sure, again, I have some compression on that from that clamp, I'm going to go ahead and put some duct tape around that. Eventually I will apply some sheet metal screws, and I'll probably wrap duct tape around the elbow once it's adjusted to hold that in place. So we'll go ahead and get this installed. Okay, so the air reducer cone, which will be the basis for this ram air injection system, is installed. Now, if you get this air conditioning 4-inch elbow, it will turn and enable you to articulate this in a position that will catch the air. And I'm not through with the final installation. I'll close this hood and you'll see what I mean. The pickup is right there. So as the air flows, it's going to get picked right up in that injection fitting. And there's not going to be any interference with the airflow to the radiator. but it's certainly going to improve the airflow to that fuel injection, because right behind here is where that air cleaner intake cone nozzle is, and I've simply brought through that sheet metal fittings, brought it down into that area there. Okay, doing a very simple failure modes analysis on this thing. The single point failure would be twisting downward on that air cleaner 90-degree attachment point. Now if that happens, this will simply move down if the airflow is strong enough. And the only problem with that, it's not going to be a problem with airflow, because again, there was no direct air inlet for the air before. So this would just be pointing a little further down, perhaps even work better, because it would stop on that, perhaps that battery post, over the edge of the battery, which is not a good thing if the other part was to come in contact with some ground point. The bulletproof radiator protection is wire tied to a PVC frame, so there's no problem with that. But in any event, what I plan on doing is putting some sort of a insulator on the back side of this sheet metal, so if it comes down and makes any sort of contact on that point there, there'll be some insulation. But if that comes down, again, it's just going to be a 90-degree air intake again. And I don't see that any real big failure mode, other than I didn't design it robust enough to keep it from flexing. So that is definitely going to be my drivers, to make sure that under, you know, a 55 mile an hour plus ambient air winds, this doesn't rotate off the 90-degree attachment point on that air cone. You know, I really would like any comments, feedback on this. What's your opinion on this in any regard? Especially if you do the same thing, what your feedback is in terms of how it performs. So I'm a little out of my comfort zone from a standpoint of design specifications. My background's aerospace launch logistics engineering, but I have motorcycle and four-wheeling where you improvise on the fly. So I think combined with both the best worlds, I think this is going to be perhaps very positive. And since I have a take on the mileage for my last trip, 6.7 miles to the gallon, I have another video on that. At some point I'll do another mileage per gallon check, and we'll see how this works. So my plan is to eventually put some sheet metal screws in here to hold these in position. I want a little more than a hose clamp and duct tape. Hose clamp's fine here. This one's fine. I may bend this up to keep this screw from backing off. May even go to another hose clamp there. A little redundancy is a good thing. I may put another hose clamp here. Again, bending these up will keep that thing from backing off. But definitely I'll run a self-drilling sheet metal screw in there to keep this from coming loose. And then I'm going to wrap this with duct tape to keep that from twisting. So anyway, I think that will conclude this video setup for what I would call the Fleetwood Flair ram air induction. So we'll go with that, and we'll finish up the install based on what I've identified yet to do, and we'll give it a test, and I'll report back. Thanks for watching. You might consider this. It's going to work.
I want you to get up and walk like a duck.
Me?
Yes.
I always walk like a duck. What are you talking about?
Do the duck walk.
Hey, Molly, let's do the duck walk.
Do the duck walk.